Man sees statue. Man wants to buy statue. Man buys statue and pays in full. Man waits for statue. Man decides he no longer wants statue. Man receives statue. Man reviews statue. Man wants to keep statue. That man is me.
You took everything from me.
I don't even know who you are.
You will.
You've tuned into the Extreme channel. We are all about extreme collectibles. I'm Mr. X, and we have Scarlet Witch in the house. That's right, this is by XM Studios. That's the manufacturer of this piece. And this is the comic-based version of Marvel's Scarlet Witch. Now, I'm really excited about this statue for a few reasons. Number one, as I said in the intro, I actually purchased her a long time ago, right when she went up for pre-order. I paid for her in full. Then during that year, or however long it was, I ended up getting rid of most of my Avengers line, with few exceptions like thrones and bust statues. So I no longer have a need for her. I also have a custom Vision statue on order as well. Thankfully, I found a buyer. My grandpa is actually going to buy this statue and that statue for me. He's paying retail because, you know, old people, they don't have a lot of money. But he's still letting me review it on the table, which is kind of a mistake, as I said, because this piece is pretty well done. So Scarlet Witch, unless you're a comic geek, yes, it's okay to be a comic geek. A lot of people really didn't know who she was until she became popularized in the MCU. You know, and when the MCU launched her, it was kind of a disservice. They weren't really showing off her true power until Endgame. That's when they really started unleashing Scarlet Witch. So that kind of excites me for what they have with WandaVision and all the other things coming out regarding that character. However, as I said, this is made by XM Studios and they do comic-based versions. With those comic-based versions, they usually do a modern twist like they did with this specific piece. And I gotta tell you, I'm loving this piece, absolutely. The reason I ordered it is I wanted a Scarlet Witch to complete my Avengers collection, and this was the best one out there. And I like a ton of the stuff they did. That's what we're gonna talk about today in the Extreme review of this statue. So let's just kick it off, and we're going to start with concept of this piece. Now with the concept, a lot of this I believe is from their own take, so this is going to be my interpretation of it, and I could be totally wrong. But warning, you don't have to tell me that in the comments. Mrs. X will tell me that, I'm sure, later tonight about something. So kind of a unique concept here. At the bottom, you have either a spaceship or some type of control room. There is gadgets and circuitry and everything going everywhere. And on top of that, it looks like a golden chair, which is what makes me think it's a control room or a circuit. Then you have an Ultron bot that has been defeated, presumably by the Scarlet Witch. And as you move up, she is in a very dynamic position. So almost like a ballet, but this could be in the middle of a fight. She could be flying, she could be fighting off another Ultron bot. Who knows? And this is one thing I never dug about this statue. It was the one big flaw that I thought it had. And now that I see it in real life, I still kind of see that weird position, but I understand why they did it. And honestly, if I was going to keep this statue, if my grandpa died tomorrow, then I would definitely get past that because it's really not as bad as I thought it would be. And it helps show off those powers because as you move up, you see her cape and hair flowing in the wind. You see her power coming out of her wrists and her hands, and we'll talk more about that in Paint and Sculpt. So I love a lot of the things that they did here with concept. It shows her power. It shows her defeating some of her main enemies. You know, the cool thing about this would actually pair really well with a lot of sideshow Avenger pieces that have defeated Ultron bots on the bases like Scarlet Witch and Captain America. And the quality is second to none on this, which we'll get into. So really for me, the big thing is the pose. I can't get past it, but I love everything else about this concept. Like I said, it shows her power. She defeated her enemy. She potentially is in mid-flight. So for a Scarlet Witch, I think the concept's a 4 out of 5. Now with the design, there's a lot of great stuff they did here. I'm actually really impressed with the design of this piece. So first thing I think I need to show you is the assembly of it. Check this out. Smaller box, at least relatively, and had that lid from XM Studios that is almost impossible to get off. Standard foam and straps. And then it was only one layer, which was kind of nice, but there were a lot more pieces than I thought there would be. Now, one great thing about her is she's so compact she doesn't take up a lot of room. So we'll actually measure. Now, the diameter of the base is about 11 inches. Now, granted, her cape makes her stick out a little bit more than that. The height of the statue is right about 25 and a half, a little bit under. Now, the base is extremely heavy, and the reason they did that is the cape is also extremely heavy. The cape's probably mostly resin or poly resin, so she has a very long key on her foot, so there won't be leaning issues. That's why they made the base so heavy. The body of Scarlet is pretty light. There aren't many switch outs, which is really unique for XM Studios. Usually they give you way too many. Here you only have 2 different portraits to choose from. The first one is this serene one. This is not my favorite. So not only is her expression different, but her helmet is different and her hair is a little bit different compared to this one, which is my preference. And we'll look at them both at Paint and Sculpt. And that's kind of the summary of what's going on with the design. I like how everything keyed in. Very strong magnets. Assembly was pretty easy. I did have to cheat a little bit and look at their video. Now, typically these always come with an art print as well. I didn't want to open that because I'm selling it, but it's usually in the pose of the statue. Now, this one did not have the little commemorative silver plaque that they've been supplying lately. I think that's because this was made before they started doing that, or maybe they only did it for a certain amount because there was a slot in the packaging for that plaque. Or maybe I'm just keeping it hostage from Grandpa, who knows. So design, I think they went pretty ambitious, and that gets them a lot of points. I think the design's a 4 out of 5 on this piece. For Paint and Sculpt lately, I've been doing a video because my video on my iPhone does a better job than my $2,500 camcorder. And I have the iPhone 12 coming. Ooh, ah. But let's check out the Paint and Sculpt. So we'll look at both portraits, but we'll do that at the end. So I want to start with this base. As I said, I think this is some kind of ship or control room that looks like a chair in the middle, but the bottom of it, this sub base, it's interesting what they did with the colors. They mixed a ton of different types of green in with that copper, and then there's some battle damage, like you look right there. Then tons of circuitry and wires and components down here. And what's interesting, this is like the part of the statue you never see. So I really appreciate that they went to all that detail on the sculpt back here. The colors flow really nicely together. See some vents. These hoses, they look real. These are fully sculpted. They did a really nice job. Here's the Ultron bot's arm coming out of the pile of junk in the middle. I think that's a good effect. And the Ultron bot itself looks fantastic. I like the fact they went with a lot lighter silver color. There's some battle damage on it. The wires coming out almost look like they should be sparking. There's almost some scoring on that gold seat. Then some wires coming out of there. Look at the inside of his mouth even. Some fantastic detail. A lot of detail in this compacted base, which is pretty cool. The chair itself, like I said, I think this is a chair. The cushion doesn't look as real as I've seen some other cushion, but it still looks great. She has a part of Ultron that was torn off. She's kind of stepping off of, which is cool. Then you see more of that scoring. I like the gold color they chose here. It's a good contrast or medium from this gray, green gray up to the red on Scarlet Witch. With Scarlet Witch here too, I love the anatomy. I think they did a fantastic job. Very sleek, not over muscularized in any way. Then her boots look fantastic. They have this pattern texture on just part of her boots. Almost reminds me of like a crocodile skin, and I love the contrast of the really shiny red to the matte red. These huge heels. Looks fantastic. And presumably some pink tights here in between her boots and her outfit on her torso. Really pops. And you have that same patternized texture right in the middle of her torso here, of her uniform. I like they didn't over exaggerate her rack. The skin tones again I think look great. You almost see some blue veins in there. And it's interesting, under the light, under the camera, it's looking different than it does in real life. I want to look at her cape. Her cape is fantastic. I love the shadowing and the flow of it. It really just adds to the statue there. As I said, it is pretty heavy. Check out her hair. So her hair is kind of all over the place on both portraits, and that's a big difference between the two. Here you kind of have a curl to it, but it still has that blue and red mixed in with the brown, kind of going everywhere, where the other portrait is more of a straight hair, even though it is flowing in the wind like that. We'll come back to the portraits. Her gloves, very similar to her boots and outfit. A shiny red with the pattern texture. And then let's take a look at this magic effect she has going on. It's not bad. I would have liked to see it personally a little bit more translucent, but I think it still looks good, and I like the color of pink. It contrasts off her tights, even though it's a different shade of pink. It still flows pretty well. So let's check out her portrait here with her, I don't even know if you call this a helmet or what you call that, but it has that same shine. This is, like I said, my favorite portrait. They did a great job with the detail of painting here. I like the sculpt. From the eyes to the teeth, just looks fantastic. Definitely the portrait of choice. Now the other portrait, one thing I noticed on it, well, it has a lot of the same similar features. Obviously the mouth is shut. Look closely at the red in the eyes. Almost looks like she's hungover or high. I think they added that red to kind of insinuate or show the power. I don't know, a little bit of a miss for me. I do like how the helmet is a little bit different though. I actually like this helmet better as opposed to this one. But for me, I don't know, I think either portrait is displayable. So really excellent job on this. Both the paint and the sculpt of not only Scarlet, but I think the base. It's really that pose that's the biggest thing that's bothering me. Really impressed with both of those. I'm torn between a 4 and a 5 for both the paint and the sculpt. The paint, I really can't see much wrong. I love the paint on this. I think they did a fantastic job. I love the art direction on the paint. I'm going to give the paint a 5 out of 5. Really impressed with it. I think the sculpt, there's a few minor things like the differentiation in the strands of the hair I would have changed differently. Maybe choosing to go with more of a translucent resin for her power. So I think it's a 4 out of 5 on the sculpt, but it's still done fantastically, which is really cool. I think when you have such a great sculpt and such a great paint job, it can really get me past that pose issue that I'm not a fan of, even though some other people might be. So let's talk about the value for this piece. I love what XM Studios is doing with their edition sizes. So edition size, or ES, is how many they made. They made 359 of these based off of final pre-orders. So retail price on this was $740, and then shipping, I can't remember, it was either $150 economy or $250. Doesn't matter, Grandpa won't remember anyway. So realistically, under $1,000, which is nice for an XM Studio statue for sure, delivered, and such a low ES. Since there aren't a lot of competitors out there, I think the value of this is pretty decent, especially with the MCU still carrying on with WandaVision. So I think it's a 4 out of 5 on the value. I think there is definitely some risk if Sideshow came out with an amazing piece. That would definitely lower the value of this. But I think for now it's king. So does this have the X factor? You know, I can't get past that pose. Without the pose, I think it had the potential to be an X factor. Great paint, great sculpt, low ES. I think that really helps. I like the concept of it. I think it's definitely a 4 out of 5. You know, if you're going to have an Avengers line, this is a 4 out of 5 for sure. I think for normal people that don't collect Avengers, maybe a 3 out of 5. But I'm going to go ahead and keep it at a 4 out of 5. Let me know what you guys would rank her. Let me know what you guys would rank her in the comments below. But for now, check out some of these other statues by XM Studios. And I drop daily content, so make sure to hit that Mr. X logo and the bell notification so you know when that happens. I'll talk to you tomorrow. Take care.